Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase and pricing details of this watch. And this watch is a model launched in 2007, the Bethune DB25 Power Reserve. As it became clear in the mid to late 2000s that Bethune was going to take its mainstream product design in an avant-garde direction, Denis Flageolet and David Zanetta, the co-founders, understood at the time that the brand still needed a more conservative model line to connect with less audacious watch collectors, but also those who had originally been attracted to the brand by the traditional styles of the DB1 case design. So the DB25 was born in the year 2007, and this was one of the original designs. 44 millimeters in diameter in rose gold. It's 11.4 millimeters thick, 51 from lug tip to lug tip, with a 24 millimeter spacing between the lugs. On my wrist, it is like a big saucer. It's broad and it's flat. It is very thin, as you could see. It's actually thinner than a Rolex Daytona. The cylindrical profile of the case makes it look sheer and thicker than it is, but it'll easily slide under a dress cuff. Now, lug to lug, it's a fairly broad watch. I think this is out to the edge of my wrist. If my wrist were any smaller, I could not wear this, but I think as my wrist is flat across the top, this works. So if your wrist is 16 centimeters circumference and up, preferably flat across the top, this will fit your wrist. 16 centimeters circumference and up, you will appreciate the flatness, you will appreciate the relatively short lugs, and you will appreciate the fact that this watch is equipped with an unusual strap. Now, I'm going to just let you know, this is fake alligator. This is a CITES strap. We use this in case we have to ship watches between continents. Because of international treaties, you can't always do that with alligators, so if this looks a little bit like plasti-scale, it is. We can leave this on the watch if you prefer, but you will get an alligator leather strap when we ship it to you, so don't worry about that. What's fascinating is this is actually a hand-stitched, hand-cut calfskin and synthetic leather strap by Jean Rousseau, which is the OEM supplier to Bethune. So this is a real factory strap here. But as you can see, only the calf leather is genuine. There is a pull tab spring bar. There's another one here. Bethune uses those. You can easily remove and replace straps if you wish. Bethune has several different buckle designs. And the idea is that the buckle should always match the character of the lugs. So these lugs, though they are evacuated and somewhat open and airy, they are still fixed conventional lugs, unlike a 27 or a 28. So here we get a relatively conventional Bethune buckle. Now the lugs are fixed. This isn't going to move around or change geometry, but you can see that they do feature a little bit of an angularity. They are evacuated internally, a bit like the flying buttresses of a Gothic cathedral. And we have this little bullet tip or ogival cap on the end of the lug, the last styling vestige of the original Bethune watch, the DB1 chronograph of 2002, and it is continued on most Bethune watches to the present day. Everything here is polished. There are some character lines on the flank of the case, but for historical reasons, the crown is unbranded, though it has a fascinating combination of knurling and drilling. Take a look at the dial, and you can see we have metallized numerals as well as a track for the minutes, and then we have matte or media blasted fired blue titanium for this outer scale, and you can see a dramatic step to the profile of the dial, stepping down to the center dial where we have brushed silver metal and then fired, polished, heavily oxidized hour indices, and then at center we have a similar firing to the outer track where we have sort of a matte blue, like a medium blue, with what Bethune calls microlight, a very finely spaced lathe engraving that is guilloche, but more modern than a Breguet-style rosette. And Denis Flageolet has chosen this for his watches so that they do have lathe guilloche, but it doesn't look anachronistic. The hands are super flat, mirror polished, and atypical for Bethune, so they're a little bit unusual and characteristic of this model. Most of the time, Bethune hands have several built-up components and 3 dimensions. These are blade-like and mirror-finished and very different by the brand standards. Now you can see there's also a track outboard for reading the minutes, so we have the metallized outer and then the printed inner minute scale. Up at the top you can see the Power Reserve as well as the name. The Power Reserve indicator can be automatically wound by the movement, or it can be manually wound, in which case it will transition from all red to all silver as it energizes, and this watch has a 6-day Power Reserve. Turning it all over, you can see we've got the twin barrel automatic movement that endows the watch with a 6-day Power Reserve. Let's take a look here. A couple of patents going on. First, you can see that Denis Flageolet wanted to have the most efficient winding automatic possible. So this 30 millimeter movement, which is large for a big case, has a broad arm. So the lever arms of the rotor are pushed out to the edges, and then you have this precious metal mass. While that is very efficient, it has a high moment or turning force. You also create a bit of a lever arm that can create various types of torsional stress on the ball bearing if it moves side to side as opposed to just circular. So you have these 4 cantilever springs, each with 3 anti-friction rubies inset. So this was patented in 2006 and ensures that the winding system is as shock resistant as the balance. The balance here is one of de Bethune's periodic updates to its ever-evolving balance. This one's actually a yoke. It's non-annular, so it's a titanium yoke with platinum bulbs. The idea is to minimize the impact of temperature change on timing, maximize the percentage of total mass in the rim, which is also good for timekeeping, and then also, to the extent possible, reduce the impact of aerodynamic drag on timing. This is caliber 2024, and it beats away at 4 hertz when the balance is in action. We have 1, 2, 3 shock protection springs. These flanking steel springs complement the Inca block. This is patented. It's called triple parachute. It has 2 purposes. 1, to prevent damage. 2, to improve timekeeping, because many shocks will be taken up by these flanking springs, and the shock will never reach the balance staff at center, so that the pivot won't be displaced from its cup jewel, and thus the watch will keep on keeping on. There's also a patented hairspring, which is actually a flat hairspring as it begins life. It's then cut into 2 pieces. The terminal curve is shaped by hand, and then the 2 pieces are micro-clamped back together. That gives you the thinness and shock resistance of a flat hairspring, but it also gives you the concentric breathing properties of an overcoil, and of course Denis has patented that hairspring curve as well. We'll fire this up. I may have to wind it a little bit more. It's the thing about these super long Power Reserve watches. Okay, we're up and running. Now the watch features a high degree of finishing. You just have to know what to look for. Your first impression might be that the bridges are somewhat severe, but get closer and you can see a medley of snailing and then media blast. Take a look at the screw heads. They're all polished with chamfered slots and circumference. The base plate is media blasted. All of the blue material on this case back is media blasted and then fired. This is titanium that's blued using the company's process. Taking a quick look, if you look carefully, you can also see that the triple parachute shock protection springs are satinated on their tops and beautifully beveled on their sides. So there is horlogerie finishing here. It's just a little bit unconventional because the house style for the automatic movements at de Bethune is perhaps a bit more progressive than on the DB28s or the conventional manual wind 25s. But make no mistake, real time has been spent here finishing by hand, and it is a minimum 6-day Power Reserve. That is the chronometric reserve. 30 meters water resistance, you don't want to swim with it, but it is resistant against inadvertent rain or splash exposure. And of course, de Bethune makes very few watches. I believe it's only just past 4,000 since 2002, and last year it made 331, so you will not see another one of these out on the street. As far as I understand, only a few dozen examples of this specific style were ever created. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase and pricing details.